Moving on to a fun and intriguing topic of holographic NLP. I know this was something when I was going through core and masters and heard about, I'm like, what is holographic NLP? And there's so much, seems like mystery surrounding it. Um, how did the idea for holographic NLP come about?
Oh, um, so Carl used to get really, really, really sad the final weekend of Masters
Okay.
because he loved the students so much, and this was the end of the road. And he might see some of them back as TAs, but there was more more time he wanted to spend with them, and there wasn't any course. And I mean, I can tell you the table we were sitting at the restaurant we were sitting at, where I looked at him and I said, you have enough for another course. And he said, what do you mean? And I listed out a bunch of things. He said, hang on a second. He took a space pen out of his pocket. He took the paper tablecloth from the seat next to him, and he started writing. And in 5 minutes, we had an outline for a 4-weekend course called Holographic. And
Just
it
like
built,
that?
and it built from there. So initially, Holographic was a way to postpone Carl's grief, which is why I laugh so hard. But the material from Holographic came from the retreat we do every year. So Holographic, actually, one of the master's courses 15 years ago did a retreat up at Sea Ranch. One of the students owned a house, and a bunch of them went up there and they stayed for 2 or 3 days, and they practiced together NLP skills to get ready for the festival. And they enjoyed it so much that the next year they invited Carl to come up. And I joined them a couple years later. And what was initially a chance just to practice master material became a kind of a laboratory for playing with new stuff. Mm-hmm. So some of the different things that Carl and I had been talking about or trying out with our clients, or and some of the innovative stuff we'd done, we then would take to Sea Ranch and teach it to the students. And we would learn from what they learned, and then we would have kind of the information. So by the time we got to that master's class where we were sitting in the restaurant, we'd done a couple Sea Ranches, and there was enough material that Carl and I had worked together that's where the material came from. And now Holographic is, Holo 1 is 5 weekends and Holo 2 is 5 weekends. And that's because it's been 15 years since Sea Ranch started, and we moved over to Bishop's Ranch and probably are moving again because the number of students that are coming keeps increasing, and we need a bigger facility. But every year, Carl and I come up with something new, and you always come up with new stuff when you're working with clients, and you're always reading and just playing with different things. And so we put it together. I have this right here. Kenya did this last year. He put together, can you see that?
Yeah.
It's the Sea Ranch book.
Wow.
And he's got pictures, but he has pictures of all the flip charts.
Oh, nice.
And from those years, and if you go through them, people were going through our books. He gave one to Carl, one to me. And people were going through the books, and they're going, that's weekend 2 of Holographic. That's weekend 3. So we can actually see what we actually, from this book, have something that lets us know what year that material got introduced into NLP Marin.
Wow.
So, yeah. So Holographic is basically where all the new stuff gets put. And we call it mission creep. There are things in core that used to only be done in Holographic now. Because we decided people needed them earlier. So we did them in masters and then decided people still needed them earlier. Coached outcome frame was like the very end of masters, the very first time we did it.
Oh.
It was like one of the things we did to help people get ready for the test or for festival day. And now it's what, like third weekend of core?
Something like that, yeah.
Like, so we put it in right away because the TAs kept saying they need it, they need it, they need it. And so it mission creeps.
Nice.
So if somebody hasn't done core in 5 or 6 years, there's going to be things in there that they've never seen just because we throw them in because they're needed.
What do you enjoy about teaching holographic NLP?
First off, I enjoy the fact that it is utterly 80% improv on my part because I never know where Carl's going. What I enjoy is it's so much about your relationship with yourself. It's so much about who you are as a programmer, how that changes the experience everyone has, and the choices that you have inside to shift your world. And in that shifting of your world, shifting other worlds. So the boundary between who I am and who you are starts to dissolve a bit in the course of that, and not in a way that's unhealthy, but in a way that I think is really healthy. I love holographic because there is a free flowness to it. We have set pieces of information and exercises, but we have a lot of discussion that is different in every class because it is really based on it's where we can start answering what the students want to know personally, as opposed to a particular skill. So we're trying to share with the students the way we think about things and the way that we put some of the information together. So sometimes when somebody asks a question, you kind of have to find out, you have to look inside and know for yourself what it is, but and then answer it. But there's a closeness with the students you get that's different. To me, holographic is where the students begin to graduate from students to peers. They do that in the course of holographic and in the course of TAing, and there is something about that graduation and watching the students who were so recently the beginners suddenly be the leaders for the new beginners, and watching that turnover, watching that growth. And sometimes I look at the holographic class and I remember the beginning of masters. It's like, who'd have thought any of these people would be where they are now? And knowing that most of them didn't think they'd be where they are, and that they're happy about where they are, and being able, it's like this evolution and this, like, I love a lot of the material we have in holographics because it makes so many different things make sense, right? But honestly, that material is the backdrop for what happens energetically as a group. And to me, it really is about taking somebody into the realm, bringing them into my world, into Carl's world, and allowing them to become peers. And that's just fun to do.
Excellent. Can you share some of the key frames or themes that holographic NLP explores?
It's another dimension of everything's possible or anything's possible. And that oversimplifies it. It's so much about who you are and knowing how you're wired. I think like the brain weekend, kind of knowing how you're structured and how people are structured differently. And it's about being able to celebrate that and appreciate that. And it's way more about appreciation than change. But it also is about how much appreciation changes things.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, because I think the students get some of the biggest shifts in holographic.
Yeah, I would agree.
But the shifts are not easy to describe. I mean, one of the things is that if they haven't gotten it before holographic, they begin to have a real sense of humor about their own pain. And that is such an odd thing to say if you haven't been through the program, because it sounds wrong, but there's something so right about it. It's people who've gone through holographic, when they hit rough spots in their life, there's a combination of like the pain of the rough spot and the amusement that they're there, and the hope that it can change is in there. It's like, it's just different, you know? So you've been through holographic 1, you're starting holographic 2 right? At the end of holographic 2, the last 2 weekends, we do something that's more intense than the box of pain that we do.
Joy. That's awesome.
And it takes 2 weekends to do.
Oh, wow.
And the day that, you know who Nisha is, right?
Yeah.
The day that Nisha walked into the classroom while everybody was out doing an exercise going, "Carl, mine doesn't hurt enough. Would you make me cry?" And he said, "Sure." And the two of them cheerfully walked off somewhere. He said 2 sentences. She burst into tears. She looked up at him and she said, "Thank you." He got up and walked away from the table.
Yeah.
That is hollow to me. That is like, you know, as much as like, I know I'm not all the way in it because it's not hurting enough, and I want to get through into the other side. And it's not like I want the hurt. I just want, like, I need that sense and that willingness in one's life. I mean, the whole world becomes so much less scary.
Yeah.
Me even doing the box of pain changed how scary the world was.
Yeah.
It's
My experience alone is similar to Nisha's. Like, you don't, like, you want it. You want the pain so that you don't have the pain anymore, or you can so it can change the way the pain is. And for me, I was looking for the change in the box of pain, like that change, what I was looking for, like way back in core. But it's that build up. Like, I don't think I could have obviously had that change in core without core, the changes in core, then the changes in masters that finally allowed me to peel enough layers off, right, to accept
and
that.
the learning of going into a little bit of pain and having it get better, and a little bit more and get better, and a little bit more and a little bit, like, that's a learning that somebody has to do. And when you get to a certain point, everything frees up. But if you try and take somebody to that point right away, you scare the system, and the system clams up, and then it's much harder to get to.
Yeah.
So that's one of the joys to me about when people will continue through the training. I mean, I always look like I'm a salesperson because I'm like, "Are you going on to the next one?" But it's because I know where they're going to get to if they go on, and I just like, I want that for everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to talk people into taking the next course. I don't benefit one way or another with more people in the course, but I want them individually. I want it for them because I just know, like, I know when you do the box of pain exercise, something changes. I know when you do the brain hemispheres, things change. You know, when it's like, "Oh, that's how I crash. Oh, that's how my partner crashes. Huh, interesting." You know, "Oh, that's how this is structured." You know, it's like, there are just so many things that open up when you learn FAA. It's like how your world changes. And so I just want that for people. And to me, that's the highlight of being a part of this, is getting to watch people through time. And, you know, every year there's a new group that graduates the program that then go out in the world. Yeah. And that feels, you know, like dropping pebbles in the pond. I don't know how many ripples there are out there, but it's exciting to me, and it's fun. And, you know, my first real job was as a camp counselor.
Mm-hmm.
And We did this crazy thing where you'd have your kids for a week, and then you'd take them to the dining hall and drop them off, and you'd walk a quarter mile down the beach and out to the dock, and you'd pick up your new kids, and you'd take them up the hill to the park, to have lunch, while your old kids walked along the beach, got on the boat, and left. So you got 15 minutes between saying goodbye to this group you had fallen in love with and I'd sung to sleep at night and, been with, who were crying because they're leaving camp. I had 6th grade girls. They were always crying. And being really excited and let's start a week welcome to camp, like shift. And I got used to the turnover. Like it's heart-wrenching. It's so hard the first couple weeks. And then it's like you kind of got into the swing of it. And it's not that you don't care about the ones moving on, but you do get excited for the next group. And so it's just kind of fun to like constantly have another group come through. And sometimes like at the first weekend of Holo, I'll look out at the class and I'll think about where I'm at with the Holo 2 students at the end. And I'm like, I kind of can't imagine being as close to this group as I am to that group. And yet the next year I do the same thing. It's like, and I know that. And it's kind of fun just to look and go, I have no idea where these relationships are going and what fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. So what have you noticed is different for students who have graduated from holographic NLP in comparison to those who stop at masters?
Confidence and enjoyment in life. The self-confidence and somebody who's been through holographic who comes back to a party, or one of our events, the community events, they walk in knowing they're NLP Marin. And the master students walk in pretty sure they're NLP Marin. And there's just like this little bit of a difference, right? There's a, I don't know how to describe it, but the relationship with self grows so much in holographic. And when that relationship with self grows, the ability to connect with anybody in the NLP community increases like exponentially. I'm sure you've had a little bit of that experience that, if I introduce you to somebody and say they're in core, you get all excited and you're happy and you're kind of confident that, you're the big kid on the block, right? Right. There's just like this, but it's not because you're advanced in the courses as much as it is your relationship with yourself is so advanced.
Yeah. And it's a new kid into the club that you can talk the secret language and all that other stuff.
Yeah. And who are shifting a vibration on the planet that is so nice. Like, having the more people that are out there that can FAA, the more people are out there that don't judge themselves all the time. I mean, we all judge ourselves some of the time, and who don't judge their partners and anybody else in the world all the time. That's a tremendous change for this world. Somebody years ago asked me why I do this or how I see myself. And I said, I'm a peace activist. Because I don't think peace starts with legislation, and I don't think it starts with countries. I think it starts with each individual learning to accept themselves. And in that, accept everybody else. When you are at peace with yourself, it's really hard to be a part of a war. And it's really hard to wage war, and it's really hard to start or even consider it. Yeah. Wow. So that's kind of always, Carl says it in rapport with self, other selves, and life itself. And for me, my words for that, I mean, that says it well too, but is that, in so many ways, I'm a peace activist. Everything I'm doing is trying to help people come to peace with themselves and with the other people in their lives. And I can't help but think that that makes a change everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might take generations, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I agree. So people say the Redwood Room has a magical field about it. Can you comment?
Yeah, it, and we're starting to get it in the Oaks room too, to be honest.
Okay, nice.
Because we're starting to do a lot more classes in the Oaks room. There have just been so many students that have gone through the Redwood room. Sometimes I sit up in the front and I see, for some reason the doorway does this to me, but I see the streams of the different classes walking through the doorway. One of the first classes I was in, there was a guy that was so flexible he could kick the top of the door jamb. And he would do that. He'd kick the top of the door jamb as he went out every time. And so sometimes I'll be in the holo class and I'll kind of just have that memory flash through me. It's like as I'm in there, the memory of so many students is with me. And all the things that have been let go of in that room and all the things that have been fallen in love with in that room, it's very much like a church. You know, you go into a church and people have been praying in there forever. There's a different quality than, right? And the Redwood room has that. And then all the constellations we've done in there. And I really am beginning to feel it almost as strongly in the Oaks room. And I imagine it builds faster in the Oaks room because we have more people. Yeah. And the last few times that we had really big classes in the Redwood room were difficult because they were sitting on top of each other. So the Oaks room feels like, the energy can expand again.
Nice.
When I did ITC this summer in the Redwood room, it felt different than the ITCs I've done before. We've done the ITCs at other hotels just because we couldn't get the Redwood room or because the Redwood room was being used by another NLP Marin class. And it just felt, it felt like our room. Nice. If you want to have a weird experience, go by the hotel on like a Wednesday and peek in the Redwood room. When it's set up for a conference or something, it's just weird when they're like tables and chairs and it's like, oh, this is creepy.
Hey, this isn't the Redwood room.
This is not the Redwood room. And you know, and to a certain extent, if you take our flip charts and a couple stools and you arrange any room that way, the NLP Marin way, we start to get the energy up.
Nice.
But Redwood room definitely is a special place.